Hey, Algebra, lesson 14, cool down here, talking about outliers. We got a group of 20 students asked to report the number of pets that they keep in their house. And we got these results. We got this one kid that has like this crazy amount of pets, 21, that seems to be away from everything else. We got to prove on question number one if any of these points would be considered outliers. I'm leaning toward the 21, but we can prove it. We need to explain why. So let's go with the 21 and see if it's outside the range that it should be. Now, our way of calculating whether a number is an outlier or not is we have to take the IQR. So let's start there. IQR, which is equal to Q3 minus Q1. And in this particular case, that would be 2.5 minus 0.5, which is equal to 2. So we got an IQR of 2. And then what it says to do is take your IQR and multiply it by the value of 1.5. Well, that would equal 1.5 times 2, which is 3. So that is equal to 3. And since this one is in the upper range, we're going to see if that distance is more or less. Well, I mean, it's obvious that 21 is going to be above that, but let's go ahead and do this. If you take the IQR, multiply it by 1.5, and add it to Q3, you would get 3 plus Q3, which is 2.5. That would be 5.5. So honestly, any number that's over 5.5 is an outlier, and this one clearly is. So 21 is clearly greater than 5.5. That is why it's an outlier. 5.5 is kind of like the upper end of that bound. So let's jump into the next one that we have. And this is good shown work that kind of helps your explanation. It's clearly greater than 5.5. After being told that they should not count fish in the report, the value of 3 becomes a 2. So this one's going to become a 2. And the value of 21, that kid had a fish tank. That makes more sense. So this is going to become a 1. Would these changes affect the median, the mean, standard deviation, or interquartile range? If so, would each measure decrease or increase from their original values? So you can kind of think about this individually, but what I did to kind of help you see it was I made a spreadsheet of it. So I'm going to go to the spreadsheet. We're going to change a 3 to a 2 and a 21 to a 1. So going over to our spreadsheet. All right, this was all the information. These are the originals, so we can do a comparison afterwards. These will change as I make the changes. Now remember, we are going to change a 3 to a 2 and a 21 to a 1. So let's go over and do that. So a 3 is going to become a 2. So we're going to make that into a 2. And our 21 down at the very bottom is going to become just a 1. So let's see how this affects the data when we do this. So looking at things, it looks like the mean definitely drops from 2.4 to 1.35. Pretty big drop. Standard deviation was almost 5, and now it's down to 1.3. Q1 same, Q3 about the same, median about the same, IQR about the same. And this is kind of what we would have expected. We've talked about this several times the last several days, but let's put this into words. So which would these changes affect the median? Median, not much change. Mean and standard deviation, yes. Interquartile range, no. So would these affect the median, mean, standard? Let's write down this. Let's write down that it affects the mean and the standard deviation significantly. If so, would each measure decrease or increase from their original values? So with those being affected significantly, we can say the mean will decrease, as will the standard deviation. Median and IQR stay about the same. Not enough to really note. And there you go. It doesn't say why. I mean, we were kind of expecting that, but you don't have to explain why they changed the way that they did, but we can kind of see that from the data. I mean, we changed that outlier to a 1, which puts it right in the middle of everything. So it makes sense that the mean dropped significantly. And that 21 also had our range of spread super wide out to the right because of the 21. So it makes sense the standard deviation went down. But really, throwing a 2 and a 1 in this mix doesn't change where the middle is going to land. And it doesn't change the Q1 and Q3 enough to make a significant difference to the IQR. And that's your cool down for today, guys. Later.